Okay.
Okay, in a world spinning its way to damnation amidst the fear, despair of a broken human race, who is left to sop up the tears post game one? Handkerchief Dynasty. Tell me how shitty you feel right now, or have you just shut down? Have you learned to detach from your emotions so well that they're floating
No,
ether somewhere?
no, I feel really bad, but I
Mm.
also feel a little what's the word? I mean, this was my biggest fear, right? Is that the Oilers would come out completely flat and show zero playoff intensity. So I was kind of mentally prepared for that. And that's exactly what happened. It was one of their worst games of the year. That was by far the least intense playoff game by a mile that I've seen. They were basically owned by the Jets. Archibald, whose jib I said I admired most in the last podcast episode, was to me probably the best Oiler on the ice tonight.
Yeah, exactly. Archibald or Puljujarvi were the best Oiler on the ice tonight, which is nice, but like actually not that good when you think about it, given the kind of fucking players we have.
And just like nobody showed up again. Guys were not finishing their hits. Guys were second to the puck, not even really attempting to get to the puck first and give themselves a shot at winning the battle. And if they got into a battle, they would lose it. There was no puck support.
We got our first shot fucking 8 minutes into the goddamn game.
Yeah, I don't know.
Shot 8 minutes in.
I don't know what it is about this team and not wanting to play that style of game, and then afterwards acting surprised that they lost, or like saying that, making any sort of excuse. It's so hard to make an excuse after playing that style of game in the NHL playoffs. Like, why even bother? Like, why even show up? Like, what did you think was going to happen? You can't expect to win games, let alone the hardest trophy to win in professional sports, by playing like that. Like, it's ridiculous to think that your time, like, it's not even worth your time. It's not even worth your time.
Is it worth our time? Is what I'm starting to wonder too. Because like,
no, it's not worth our time, but it's even crazier that it's not worth their time. You know what I mean?
The only way I can understand if they played that way is if like the coaching staff gave them a bunch of like long division problems to do in their head right before they put them on the ice or something.
Oh, well,
they just seemed completely distracted. Like they had something else on their mind.
Yeah,
how many times
have we said that? And maybe, it's pretty crazy, like the whole thing with the fans in the building. Like, it's a real shame that other places have fans in their building, and the Canadian teams. No, I'm just saying it is, because I'm sure they spent the entire weekend watching those games, and you haven't watched any of the games, and they've been crazy. They've been so intense. True. And the fans it's an element. So I'm sure they were watching those games, and they get out there and it's just like the same old sort of like COVID style of playoffs, I'm just saying, that's, to me, that could be a factor in it, but it's certainly not an excuse, because it's been like that the entire season. And that was one of the worst games they played all year.
It's embarrassing. I'm embarrassed for them to have lost to a depleted lineup, like two of their game time decisions weren't even dressing. Like, how many more points do our obviously also the refs are just not going to call anything. It was like, just like all kind of, whatever. I've already given up on the refs calling the power play, but like, maybe we just like can't, maybe the Oilers style of play is just poorly suited to the playoffs. They need skill, they need power plays, they need time and space. And they're
to get power plays, you have to play. The other team's not just gonna like.
That's true. We didn't really
give you power plays. Yeah. No, you have to earn power plays by playing a breed of hockey that gives you power plays, that forces the other team to take penalties. You have to get in their kitchen, and the Oilers didn't do that. And the power play that they did get, they looked terrible on. They just looked, awful. They looked absolutely awful. They looked exactly like the team that lost to the Hawks last year. And like you said, the Jets had their two most potent offensive weapons, or two of their most, out of the game. You're not going to get that many chances. Like it was a totally squandered opportunity tonight.
It was so painful to watch. It was so painful to watch too, because
and right off the face-off, right off the bat, you could tell.
Yeah.
Like when they showed that stat on the screen, that was like the Oilers haven't got a shot, and it was like 8 minutes in. I haven't seen that stat very many times this year on television. You know, when they put that up on the screen, and it was very ominous, and they continued to play like that the entire game.
Yeah, the whole game had an ominous, just like it was in a torpor. It was just, you know, I was like sitting there, like I was thinking how foolish I was earlier in the day to be like excited for the playoffs.
No, you weren't foolish. You weren't foolish.
I mean, but it was like dread. It was just like painful. It was a painful game to watch.
Oh yeah, it was terrible. And then it's so funny too, like the way the first period ended, where I mean that's the closest I've ever seen Connie to actually dropping his mitts, was at the end of the first period. Like I kind of thought Connie was going to go with who Pionk, was that Pionk he was twirling around with? Yeah. So to have the first period end like that, and I imagine they all went into the locker room and they were like, you know, you get high off that kind of stuff. And then to come out and it's just like, and the second period, the Jets came out and were just like running the show. Like the Jets went into the locker room and that fired them up. And then they came out and they still had it. And the Oilers, yeah, I don't know. It's a real problem. And that Darnell Nurse quote a couple weeks ago that said how Mike Smith really forced, it was something about getting them to play at an extremely high competitive level. And for that to be something that you have to have somebody on the team, the goalie of all guys, to get you there, I mean, that's a quote that didn't inspire a lot of confidence to me. It was like the guys on the team, the guys that are playing that aren't the goalies, have a real problem manufacturing that intensity. I don't know what's going to happen. That's why I said last episode, it was crazy to imagine in your head the Oilers playing that sort of game that I've seen from the other games in the playoffs. And I expected them to play that game. But then sadly, as they always do, seemingly for the past 5 postseason games, they just like can't, which is bizarre. I've never seen it. I've never seen a hockey team play so many playoff games or postseason games where they're just like, it's like you're not watching a postseason game. It's like you're watching a bad regular season game. Yeah. It's just zero intensity.
You're watching like, I'm shaving my fucking playoff beard. I'm starting over again. I'm so pissed off because it's so itchy and it's coming in weird. So like, I'm going to shave. I'm going to pretend like the playoffs start in game 2 here, because like game 1, I'm just so fucking annoyed right now. I'm just fully annoyed.
It's pretty stunning. Like it's a thing. It's definitely something that, I don't know, maybe when a series ends and that's what you brought to a series, sort of the end of the series tricks you into thinking you've addressed the problem that lost you the series, where you're just like, it's over. Like, and then you can look back on it and be like, boy, we sure weren't intense enough, but that'll never happen again. And it's an easy thing to say that you'll fix, but unless you attempt to fix that or take action to make sure it doesn't happen again, I don't know if you fix it. And like there was moments like when Archibald leveled DeMello, it's like, where was that from everybody else? Like guys just weren't even finishing their hits. Like they weren't finishing their hits. Like it's the playoffs.
Mostly, is it mostly? Would you lay the blame mostly at the forwards at the forwards in front of them? Because like it seems to me like besides Archibald, besides a couple of other forward players, like that's where the problem was.
Zero forecheck.
No jam, no intensity, no like puck support.
Like, I guess so, but you know what? The defense too. Like the defense, every time there's a scrum around Mike Smith, like you have to. There's so much gamesmanship in the playoffs, right? It's a series, right? So anytime you have an opportunity to give a guy a shot, you do that. You can't be the reactive element in this thing, right? You have to be dictating. You have to be, you know, letting the opposition know you're there at all times and forcing them to be underneath your boot. Like you have to be grinding them constantly. You can't give them a moment to to get up on you and think that they have the upper hand. And to not do that, I mean, you're not going to do that by like not doing it. It almost seems like that's the Oilers' plan. Like that's what's kind of hardest to watch, is they seem so resigned and almost confident in playing that shit brand of hockey that we saw tonight. Like, oh yeah, like we don't really need to do that. Like that's not really,
where's their will to dominate?
That's not really the Oilers' way.
It's like if Sauron had acquired the Ring of Power, but he lacked a will to dominate, so he's just like, whatever. And then the Lord of the Rings never would have happened. It's like the will to dominate is a core aspect of Sauron's evil, and the Oilers' will to dominate, given the fucking Ring of Power they have, a la the fucking best players in the fucking world, they should have a record. They should have a commensurate will to dominate these games.
Yeah, I don't know where the blame lays on it, but it's like a thing, like it's a problem, and I don't know where, like how it's addressed. Remember, like in the
here's a thought. If we lose this series to Winnipeg, God forbid, knock on wood. Yeah. What are the chances Dave Tippett is retained as Oilers coach beyond this
I don't think it's his problem. They played great all year. What was the record? 38-16, 38-18. They had an amazing season. It's not Dave Tippett's problem. Dave Tippett can't get out there and level guys in the corner. And the Oilers were playing like that all season. Like there's been so few games this season where afterwards I was like, wow, they just didn't show up. There's been maybe 1 or 2 games, and maybe they'll rectify it next game on Friday. But I think there's such a disparity between what you need to adjust to get to a really high level of competition in the regular season compared to the level you have to get, to in the playoffs. So I don't know if the Oilers are capable of like getting it there, because I don't know. It almost feels like the Jets were able to take their foot off the gas to some extent and have that work for them. You know what I mean? Like they were able to just like treat the Oilers like garbage and just like not even really engage with them at all, because they knew the Oilers wouldn't engage. So why bother engaging them?
The stick work was pretty real, don't you think? I mean, like on both sides to a certain extent. Although Edmonton didn't really answer, like it was like a rough, and like there was a lot of cross checking, a lot of slashing. So? Yeah, a lot more than normal. Yeah, I'm not saying like we lost because of like a lack of penalties. Because the Yamo thing was pretty brutal. No, I mean early on, like you noticed there was more toughness in Winnipeg's game than they had in the regular season. Don't you think? Winnipeg was playing more playoff hockey than Edmonton was?
Oh, more than Edmonton was, but I wouldn't say that they were playing a tougher game than I've seen them play in the regular season by any stretch. They look like it looked by every possible parameter a regular season game to me. Winnipeg didn't look like they stepped it up because they looked like they didn't feel the need to, and Edmonton just can't get it up to that level, to playoff intensity. So, yeah, I don't know. Archibald looked good. I thought Archibald, Yamo. I thought Kulikov looked pretty great. He threw some big hits. Cassian was just nowhere to be found again, so he's checked out. He's not gonna bring it. And
they can't dress Cassian. They gotta stop dressing Cassian, man. Like the dream that like somehow he's gonna be a difference maker. When was the last fucking time that guy made a difference in a game? Like, give me a break. Give me a break.
Yeah.
It's been like a calendar year at least.
Yeah, it's
like,
over.
If like someone's like, oh, they're really good at working the Barbie, but like, you keep on being like, hey man, like, you want to work the Barbie? You want to work the Barbie? And they're just like, no, I'll just have some potato salad. If like that goes on long enough, like you lose that reputation. Your reputation is based on recent results.
Yes, I completely agree, man. I completely agree with you. Yeah, I don't know. And it's so crazy too, because that's a guy who's like, what are you waiting for? This is like your livelihood. Are you done? Are you telling us?
I think he is. I think he feels like he's done. He signed the only big contract he's ever going to sign.
I guess so.
Well, and then now he's just going to like become a HA or something in his retirement. Who knows? I have no idea what's going on with this guy.
Yeah, well then he should retire. Then next year he should, because like
I'd rather see fucking Gaetan Haas in the lineup over him. Like, because at least Gaetan Haas has some try.
Oh, absolutely.
Like,
Absolutely. I think Gaetan Haas actually is a guy who could bring something to the team. He's he's nasty. He's a little bit shifty and he's a little bit nasty. And I think he would he'd play well. It's just
he's a battler.
Yeah, he's a battler, which is we just have none of it. And that's 5 postseason games in a row that I've seen this team just completely deflate. So I don't know. I mean, if they do it again on Friday, that's the reputation of the Edmonton Oilers. You can erase everything else. You can erase Connie's season because there's something that he and this team don't have, and that's playoff finish.
You think Connie? You said Connie and Dry were invisible tonight for most of the game.
I thought they were.
Yeah, by their own standard, for sure. Yeah.
Well,
which is the only standard they should be measured by.
Right.
Like, what's the deal there? Like, do you think like they're in their own heads, or the coaches are trying to get them to play a certain system, or if they've over scouted the other team? Did like someone slip some Xanax into the water bottles? Like, what's going on? Like, what do you think is the most likely explanation? Other than
I'm not sure.
They just don't have it. Therefore, they will probably never have it. Unless they learn to somehow fucking have it. But learning to have it is like not something that athletes.
You know what? All I can say, and I'm sure like it's going to sound ridiculous, and I hate saying it, but it's that I just don't know what kind of a leader Connie is. And I personally think that is very important in the playoffs. You need to have a guy who's a leader. You need to have a guy who has leadership qualities. And it's the only thing I don't know about Connie. And I think leadership is important in the playoffs. And from when I watch a game like that, the first thing that I think of is who's the head of this, who's in charge, and why aren't they manufacturing intensity? Like, why aren't they instilling in their team what needs to be there in order to win? You know what I mean?
Should Leon Draisaitl be named captain of this team? Do you think?
I don't know. I'm not sure if I don't know. Like, I don't know if he's that kind of guy either. But all I know, like, I don't know who the guy is. Maybe it's Nuge, for God's sakes. Like, I don't know. But it might not be Connie, and Connie might be too much of another sort of thing to also be that thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, like, are we going to criticize Connor McDavid for not being a great fucking captain? No, he's fucking gold. He's pure, solid chrome dildo. Solid. He's the best.
And you know what?
You're right. There might be a little bit of a leadership void.
And that's what I'm saying. And I realize, like, it sounds so ridiculous to say that, but I think it would be really tough to be wearing both those hats. And also, I mean, if he is that guy, then the rest of the team is going to have to, I mean, the playoffs are no time for quiet leadership, I don't think. And I've heard, like, I remember there was that post game where Dry was talking about Nuge, and he said that Nuge was the quiet leader of this team. And like, that also made me think, like, it kind of sent a shiver down my spine, because I mean, you're calling him two things. You're calling him quiet, and you're calling him a leader of this team. And in the playoffs, I don't think that's the recipe for success. Personally, that's what I think. So I think there might be, and I don't know how you take the captaincy away from Connie. And I'm not even really suggesting
it's probably impossible to, right?
And I'm not even really suggesting you do that. But I think if there's a deficit there, then somebody else on the team, or the team collectively, which would be even better, collectively has to like step up. Like, yeah, I don't know. After that game, like a players only meeting even doesn't seem out of the question to me after this game and after how they exited the postseason last year.
Definitely. I mean, all this being said, if they come out with a really strong effort in game 2, all will be forgiven to a certain extent. But like, if they don't come out and fire like 5 shots on net in the first 4 minutes, I'm gonna like walk away from the screen or something.
Yeah,
this whole thing, it's like you don't wade your way into it's like summertime. You jump into the lake head first, okay?
Right.
You go directly from the truck where you've been blasting tunes and you got all your favorite snacks and friends assembled, and then you don't question it. You just jump into the lake in your shorts.
Yeah.
But like you don't like grab the like floaty thing and then dip your toe in and be like, I don't know about this, like, because then you're never gonna get in that motherfucker, okay? No
Yeah.
more feeling out shit. One thing I'm glad we didn't do was talk about the shots. I did post on Twitter, I don't want to hear about the fucking shots. Fuck the
No.
shots.
You mean
It's
how we
like,
had like more shots than they did?
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to me, Connor Hellebuck didn't have a great game. He had at most 5 quality chances at most. I think I'm being generous.
You're being generous, yeah.
I mean, we made him look like he had the fastest chest in the NHL is what the Oilers did. Like he wasn't moving around a lot. We were firing pucks. The Oilers were firing pucks right at him. Like he didn't make any huge stops that entire game, I don't think.
No.
And you know what? The goal that the Oilers got was extremely fortuitous. That was a very lucky goal where the puck sort of disappeared for a minute and it landed right on Puljujarvi's stick. That's how the Oilers got theirs.
Yeah.
So I don't really think the way the Oilers played, I don't even think they deserved to have a goal on the board. That should have been a 4-0 game.
Well, they weren't generating quality chances. They weren't playing their game.
Like, they were
maybe we're just not a
reacting.
good. Are we just not a good 5-on-5 team? Have I just forgotten that we're not a good 5-on-5 team?
Think of the games we played with the Oilers get penalties because they force the other team to take penalties, and you force the other team to take penalties by generating quality scoring chances. And you do that by getting into the gross areas and playing hard and playing with intensity. And the Oilers did none of that. They wanted to skip right to like the final thing where you get goals or something or win games. And I don't know. It was a really, really ugly hockey game. And I'm surprised it happened, but not surprised. I mean, if there was a way that the Oilers were going to lose, that's how they were going to lose, is just by not showing up. They just didn't show up, which is like, that's what they do. Right.
And like, I keep on fooling myself into thinking, they've learned. They talked about it. We had a conversation in the past with like, man, like I feel really bad we didn't show up that time. It really left you hanging there. I feel really bad.
Yeah.
We're gonna show up. We know what showing up is all about now. We got a email reminder. It's in the calendar. There's a push notification that'll come to our phone to remind us 15 minutes before. We're gonna show up this time. And I'm still fucking sitting here with all this guacamole by myself, in a bad mood, feeling very silly for being in a bad mood. Texting people being like, man, I'm in such a bad mood. And they're all just like, you're silly. You're silly. That's like universally the reaction. And it's the national one.
And we're going to feel, because right now, I mean, I don't even want to hear what they have to say about it. I'm not interested in what they have to say about it and how they're going to brush it off and how they're going to say it's a series. But you know what? Over the next 24 hours, I am going to hear what they said. And this is going to feel even worse and crappier tomorrow than it does right now, because it'll be dissected. And let's face it, like the Oilers got absolutely blasted tonight. Like there's nothing to feel good about.
Embarrassing loss. I mean, the other team just played a solid defensive game, shut us down, scored on their like handful of chances, and just made us look silly. 2 empty nets and all that too. But like at no point did I think Edmonton was really in much of a threat to fucking score that time.
No, what did I text you? Like there was like 8 minutes left or something, and I was like, "There's no way they've checked out," and they had. And even the empty netters, like that didn't even look like the way those.
They weren't pressing for the equalizer. No,
it was like they pulled their goalie, and the Jets immediately scored both times, like on a turnover coming up the ice.
Yeah,
like a turnover that they got at like the half boards,
Yeah, totally.
And just brought it up the ice and scored.
Yeah,
man, it was pretty crazy. So,
I mean,
I don't know, really and it's really surprising because like the Oilers have Connor McDavid, like, and it's so like we talk about this thing how there might be like maybe a leadership, like an issue there, and how he can't be two things, but it's so crazy because usually those guys are both things. You know what I mean? Like he sort of feels like one of the first guys that kind of isn't both things, which is weird to me. Often those guys are.
Yeah. I mean, he's the first of his kind. He's a singleton, as they say.
Absolutely.
He's like a species of one.
But you know what I mean? Like when you
I know exactly what you mean. Yeah.
Like Ovechkin is that guy. Messier was that guy. Crosby's that guy. sort of. I mean, maybe that's a stretch. Maybe Crosby's not that guy. It's just it's so stark when it comes to Connor McDavid in the way that the team performs and the way he performs and the way the team performs in the postseason is just, it's really hard to reconcile as a fan. It's painful. So I don't know. It's a series. I still think the Oilers will win this series. I think there's a huge, I mean, like we talked about in previous episodes, there's such a difference between a 7-game series and a best of 5 series.
Yeah.
The Jets are going to have to do this 4 times. And I don't know if they manage to do it 4 times, it'd be quite a thing, but they sure had an easy time. Like now they have to do it 3 more times. We have to do it 4 times. And they sure had a relatively simple time doing it tonight.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Real
right.
drag, man. Real drag.
It's real drag. Yeah. I'm going to go for like a long walk and like think like depressed thoughts as I gaze out on the cold world around me.
Just so many questions, right? So many questions.
Well, like I was also
that's
killing
what I hate
time
most about
to
it.
get to the start of the playoffs, and now I have like 2 days to kill until the next game. But I'm half just living in dread of it now. The
next game's on Friday, right?
On Friday, yeah. If they lose that game, all is lost. We should just call up Robert Redford. It's all over.
I don't think so. The Oilers were down. I mean, in 1990, the Oilers were down 3-1 in the opening round series against the Jets, and they came back and won in 7 games and went on to win the Stanley Cup. Like, it's a 7-game series. Losing game 2 also isn't the end of the world. It sure doesn't look good, and statistically, it doesn't bode well. But I mean, you have to do it 4 times, right? It's a best of 7. So,
all right. Well, yeah.
I still think. I mean, it's not. I would not call this game a one-off because I've seen it happen too many times. It's now like it's a huge red flag. And it needs to be fixed. If they expect to win this series, it needs to be fixed. Either, hopefully next game, but at some point to win this series, we're going to have to see the Oilers play a style of hockey that they haven't played in any sort of postseason since 2016.
Yeah, I think it's a big red flag right now. It's like the size of a red flag that like the PRC is taking to like a stadium, Olympic stadium for some sort of event, and they have like hundreds upon hundreds of people holding the edges. And
yes.
It's unfurled and flapping in the air, and everyone's like, man, look at that red flag. That is a huge red flag.
Yes.
Gorgeous.
People are saying they're taking pictures of the flag, pictures that won't do the flag justice when they're showing.
Yeah.
What's this picture of a flag? And you're like, oh, you had
to be there. Yeah.
It was huge. It was huge.
It was simply enormous. Okay. Well, anything else for the kids out there in case they're super depressed and they're leaning towards self-harm?
Well, one thing I do is for every playoff game, I buy myself a bit of a fancy snack, a playoff snack, something I usually wouldn't buy myself. Tonight, I bought myself antipasto and Ritz crackers. And it was great. Delicious. And it gave me something to look forward to. So at this point, I'm immediately now looking forward to the fancy snack I'll buy myself on Friday. And I'd recommend you do the same, because if nothing else, you'll have a nice snack.
I'm going to finish reading Dread, Poetry, and Freedom, Litted Kwesi Johnson, and The Unfinished Revolution. And that's going to cheer me up. Okay. A little bit of a different approach. But yeah.
You'll be that's a good, I mean, that will also, I think that will also be really positive. You know what I mean?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Definitely.
Like by Friday, you'll be raring to go on Friday.
Yeah. We had a celebrity guest walk through the background there. That's the sign to wrap it up though.
Yeah. You better believe it.
Okay. High Priest, thank you so much for getting on mic. Let's hook it up again real soon. Let me know how the fancy snacks go. And send me some pictures of those fancy snacks so I can snack vicariously.
Yeah,
it's actually a really, really nice thing to do.
I'd be glad to do that for you. It would be my pleasure.
I appreciate that. Okay, thanks for listening, everybody. Much love. Bye.
All right, see ya.